What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and a year ago, I was begging you guys to draft Garrett Wilson. He was my most drafted player. You guys can see $1,200 of entry fees absolutely poured into Garrett Wilson. We had a video about him a year ago. He was the front man on the cover. The whole idea was that he was mispriced. We were going after him, ended up doing well. He wasn't a monster down the stretch because you had the QB situation where Mike White went down on the Jets, but he was a high advance rate player. Somebody, if you drafted him, then that team probably did a lot better than if you took somebody else in like the 10th or 9th round, wherever Garrett Wilson was going. But what we're going to talk about today in terms of 2023 is through about like 200 best ball drafts so far for me for the 2023 season. My most owned player, again, is a rookie wide receiver. So we're not going to talk about him just yet. It'll be a little bit of a surprise, but this is another rookie wide receiver I think is just as mispriced as Garrett Wilson was. We're going to get into why rookie wide receivers are a cheat code in fantasy football, and then talk about the rookie wide receiver that I cannot stop drafting in 2023. So with all that being said, if you enjoyed this video at any point, make sure down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Yeah, stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen, she gon' let me.
Now, before we even talk about this rookie wide receiver, I want to bring up why we even target rookie wide receivers in general. And this is a really nice sort of visualization of the idea of targeting rookie wide receivers by Jack Miller over at, I believe, Establish the Run now. But it shows just on a complete whole. He took all of the rookies and all of the veteran wide receivers, and he charted their points per game. This was done in like 2021. But as you guys can see, the veterans, as the weeks of the season go on, their points per game goes down, right? They're older, they're breaking down. Whereas rookies, it goes way up. So, they might not even be startable through the first like 6 weeks, 7 weeks of the season. But towards that back half, they are supercharging your team, loading you up for playoff runs and really boosting your team, whereas veterans don't have that same effect. So we want to be, targeting rookie wide receivers if they're stacking on their best performances at the end of the year when we're making money, right? Those are the most important weeks. Weeks 14 through 17 is when we're winning money. We're in the playoff weeks. We're trying to win championships. That's when we want our studs to come out. We don't want them to, fizzle out after the first however many weeks. Kind of like, I think like Clyde Edwards-Helaire was kind of like that last year. Now, a way to kind of show that another time in terms of how impactful rookie wide receivers have been is that, as we can see on the whole, rookie wide receivers, they get better as the year goes on, where veterans either stay the same or get worse. And I think something to picture that even a little bit better is, how good are these rookie wide receivers down the stretch? Because, you see it there and it's like, what? By week 15, rookie wide receivers are like just above 10 points per game, but that's not what it's about. That's, rookie wide receivers as a whole. But I decided to zoom in a little bit more and look at individual seasons. So these are rookie wide receivers from 2022 through 2019. And I just picked week 10 on. There's nothing like special about week 10 on, but I just figured that's like, the back half of an NFL season, weeks 10 through 18, I think is like 9 games. And during those stretches, you have, from each year, you have 12 total wide receivers here. These are wide receivers who were in points per game from weeks 10 on, or a wide receiver 24 in points per game or better. So a wide receiver 2 or better. And you can see, yes, you have the studs up top where Justin Jefferson was averaging 19.4 points per game from week 10 on. By the way, the way that you're reading this chart or table, you have the player, their rookie year, their points per game from week 10 on. Then you have their point per game position rank from week 10 on. So Justin Jefferson averaged 19.4 points per game from weeks 10 on in his rookie year. That was the wide receiver 4 in points per game over that stretch. You drafted him at an ADP of 56. Wide receiver 56 is where you drafted him. So those numbers at the end are where you drafted these guys. And that's what's so insane. You look at the top, right? All the way from A.J. Brown through Justin Jefferson are all wide receivers who were wide receiver 1s from week 10 on, right? Wide receiver 12 or better. And all of them besides Jamar Chase weren't even drafted inside of the top 45 wide receivers per ADP. So you were getting wide receiver 1 production in the weeks that matter the most, and you're not paying for it. You're paying, wide receiver 46, right? Jefferson's wide receiver 56. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 78. Elijah Moore, wide receiver 54. Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver 61. Like, these guys are dirt cheap, and they're giving you massive, EV and win rate added to your team on the back half of the season, when that's the most impactful, timeline of the season. Then even after that, you have like Deebo Samuel, who you drafted at like wide receiver 69. He was the wide receiver 14 down the stretch. Darius Slayton, Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson last year, he was drafted wide receiver 52. He was the wide receiver 24 down the stretch. Just really, really good stuff that we should be targeting, where on an average, since 2019, there have been on average 3 rookie wide receivers each year that have been a top 24 wide receiver or better in points per game from weeks 10 on. So now we know rookie wide receivers, they might not help you over the first 6 weeks, but down the stretch, they have massive, massive upside to outperform their ADP. And the rookie wide receiver that I am targeting because of all of this is, drumroll, Quentin Johnston. This is through 152 pre-draft best ball drafts, right? So that's before the draft. And then 92 teams after the draft now. And through both of them, my most drafted wide receiver is Quentin Johnston. Now, I like him a lot. I think he's mispriced. And he reminds me a lot of Garrett Wilson. That's why I opened up with Garrett Wilson, because when we look at last year, the whole idea behind me drafting Garrett Wilson was the dynasty community saw Drake London, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson was the cream of the crop, right, in terms of just prospect strength. And when we're betting on rookies, right, when we saw that chart from before, or that table from before, a lot of these guys aren't even on great teams, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown was on a Lions team. Elijah Moore was on a Jets team that was awful. Garrett Wilson on the bottom was on a Jets team that was awful. Darius Slayton and Terry McLaurin were on, Giants and Washington teams that weren't great. Waddle, that was Waddle before like Tua and Tyreek Hill even really broke out. The Packers offense wasn't great last year with Christian Watson. Like, situation with these wide receivers, it almost doesn't matter a ton. It's really more about, can this wide receiver get on the field and ball out? So when it comes to that, and we're betting on rookie wide receivers, I think prospect profile and, to a more macro level, kind of dynasty ADP gives us a good look at where wide receivers should be bunched. And based on that, we saw Drake London was up top. Treylon Burks was up top, right? Top 72 picks per ADP. Top 35 wide receivers. And we go all the way down to Garrett Wilson, pick 98. He was a whole like 28 picks cheaper. I was screaming at the top of my lungs he was way too cheap. I mean, same thing with Olave, but I just didn't feel at the time that Olave was the same level prospect as those guys. Now, moving forward to 2023, we got something very similar here with Quentin Johnston, where you have, JSN, again, like Drake London, pushed up to the top, and that's fine. He was the first wide receiver off the board. Then you have Jordan Addison, who is like pick 70-ish, and then you have Quentin Johnston, who is a full like 20 picks cheaper than Jackson Smith and Njigba. He is not seen by the redraft market as inside of the same tier as a dynasty market season. Even if it's like, JSN's a way better wide receiver prospect, which I had him as my wide receiver 1, but he was drafted literally back-to-back with Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison in the 20s, unlike, London and Garrett Wilson were top 10 picks. But even then, Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston are in the same tier. And you can see there's, like 4 wide receivers in between them. He's like almost a round cheaper. He's a 7th round pick in redraft, and that's just so cheap. And even when we talk about, it's not even so much about Quentin Johnston versus JSN or anything, but even if we like compare their situations, again, all drafted within like 4 picks of each other in the real NFL draft. They're all in the same tier of wide receiver prospect to me, and they're all in similar spots, right? Where JSN is almost identical to Quentin Johnston in that he is going into a wide receiver room with 2 established guys, right? JSN has Metcalf and Lockett. Quentin Johnston has Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. The difference is that the Chargers are going to have Kellen Moore calling plays and Justin Herbert at quarterback, where the Seahawks have Geno Smith at quarterback. And we haven't really seen him string together 2 good seasons yet. I'm not saying he's going to be bad or anything. I'm just saying JSN's also wide receiver 3 on his depth chart. Quentin Johnston's wide receiver 3 on his depth chart, and his quarterback is better. So I just don't think, I think 20 picks apart of ADP is kind of insane when it comes to JSN versus Quentin Johnston versus Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison isn't the wide receiver 3 on his team, but he is behind Justin Jefferson, so that's pretty tough. So I just think that there is a little bit of a bias against Quentin Johnston's prospect profile. I think that people, the redraft market in particular, are a little bit too certain with their scouting, prospect profile on Quentin Johnston. It just makes absolutely no sense for him to be that far behind Addison, never mind that far behind JSN. And I think it's because people are very sure that he's going to be a bust, right? Where people say he like body catches. That's the biggest thing with Quentin Johnston. He body catches on film. People hate that. And I think that's what's really fueling the discount here. And I'll take that all day because like the title said, I think the title is going to be something like Quentin Johnston or this rookie wide receiver is built to win fantasy football leagues. Quentin Johnston's is built to win fantasy football leagues, in particular underdog best ball leagues where it's the, best lineup every week. You don't have to set your lineup. Quentin Johnston's going to have monstrous spike weeks. He is built in a lab to give you spike weeks in best ball. Now, if you aren't already, make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy. I'll have a link at the top of the comments down below. I'll have a link in the description. It'll be pinned at the top of the comments. You click it. It'll take you to Underdog Fantasy. It'll use promo code Ron. That'll get your deposit matched up to $100. You can get in some drafts on Underdog Fantasy. Take Quentin Johnston at this absolute ridiculous price tag. They have pick'ems. They have a bunch of really cool stuff you can check out on Underdog Fantasy. Now, in terms of Quentin Johnston, the prospect, the reason why I think he's built to win leagues is because when we look at his comps, he comes out as an elite wide receiver prospect. Again, the RS grades absolutely love him. Elite prospect tier, legendary prospect tier, those are just like the super high echelons of my model. Quentin Johnston comes out in the same exact prospect tier as, guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Keem Nicks, Michael Crabtree, T. Higgins, Kenny Britt, the legendary guys in there that are also good comps, A.J. Green, Sammy Watkins, Amari Cooper. So you can see the upside is very much there. The production is an A in the RS grades. Like, he looks good. He's an early declare. He's 6'3", 208 pounds. There's tons of upside there. He's like the only big physical wide receiver in this draft class, which usually does kind of breed your really high upside seasons. We've seen it with, your Deebo Samuels, your A.J. Browns, your Brandon Ayuk's. Quentin Johnston fits that mold. He has an amazing range of comps that the database spits out for him. He is an elite wide receiver prospect. His RS grade would be right in line with Jackson Smith-Njigba, Drake London, Treylon Burks, all of those rookie wide receivers who have gone way ahead of Quentin Johnston to this point. And the reason to buy in at this price of a 7th round ADP is 7th round is a pretty relatively low asking price on a guy like Quentin Johnston. And it means if he completely whiffs or flames out, he doesn't really hurt your team, right? If you're drafting him in the 7th round, he's probably going to be like a wide receiver 4 for you, right? He's probably not going to be in your flex right away. So I think he's a great upside shot because of what the upside looks like for his skill set. Like when we look at what he did in college, this is a great chart. I believe this is from Fusu on Twitter. Yeah, at Devi Yusuf or at Devi Fusu. But you can see Quentin Johnston is in a tier of his own when it comes to missed tackle rate and ADOT. This is your relevant wide receiver prospects from 2019 to 2023. And relatively speaking, the further down the field you're getting the ball, the less yak and the less missed tackles forced you're adding to your stat sheet. That is not true with Quentin Johnston. He is an anomaly where his ADOT was all the way down in like that 18-yard range, and his missed tackle force rate was also crazy high. So he is this guy where usually the way that you're going to win in fantasy football as a wide receiver or just be efficient in general is with yak or ADOT, right? In particular, you have a guy like Deebo Samuel. His efficiency comes from yak, missed tackles force, big plays, where Olave last year cleared he was like top 5, top 6 in yards per out run because his ADOT was like 16 yards downfield. So he's already adding those extra yards on before the catch. Usually it's one or the other. With Quentin Johnston, it's both, which gives him this massive efficiency ceiling to, outperform the low volume that a rookie wide receiver usually gets in year one. And that's really exciting. And it's why he was really efficient. Like when we look here, this is a Dwayne McFarland stat. Let me pull it up. Here it is. It said, in per PFF data, Johnson was an absolute monster against press man coverage with a juicy 33% target per out run and an eye-popping 3.85 yards per out run over the last 2 seasons. No player with at least 75 routes against press man was better in the Power 5. So in terms of press man just being on the outside, one-on-one in man coverage, press man, he had the highest yards per out run. He had a juicy 33% target per out run, so he's getting open, he's commanding targets, he's being efficient, and that's what we want for a guy, especially that's a 7th round pick, especially a guy we're drafting in best ball that just has massive spike week potential, especially because he is a high ADOT wide receiver that has a huge efficiency ceiling of the yards at the catch ability after, getting the ball, 16 yards downfield. And then he's also paired with Justin Herbert on what should be an explosive, high scoring offense with Justin Herbert, who has one of the biggest arms in the league and can actually connect with Quentin Johnston downfield. So that's really exciting because now you have Quentin Johnston who doesn't need a 25% target share to get there. He can get there with like a 20% target share because he doesn't need many catches to absolutely go off. Like these are his best career games from college. And outside of, 180 yards and above, everything below that is 6 catches or less, right? Like we're looking, look at this game versus Michigan in the college football playoffs. 6 for 163 and a touchdown. He turned 6 catches into 163 yards in a touchdown. Same thing for his Baylor. He turned 5 catches into 142 in a touchdown. He turned 4 catches versus Kansas State into 139. He turned 3 catches versus Oklahoma State into 114 yards. So he can just give you like almost like Will Fuller stat lines, or he can give you like 4 for 120 in a touchdown off of like 4 targets. And that's what you're shooting for when it comes to rookie wide receivers, right? They're going to win with efficiency. And that's what you're shooting for, outside of the top 5 rounds. You want guys who don't need all the volume in the world. He's a rookie wide receiver. You also have him in a spot here where, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have missed time on their own the last year or so. One of them could, step aside. Quentin Johnson could kind of fill in their role. I mean, he's not going to go in the slot like Keenan Allen. I'd assume Palmer probably slides inside in that situation. Actually, Quentin Johnson, I think that he had one of the highest yards per out run out of the slot last year. So maybe they would mess around with him, maybe rotate between him and Palmer if Keenan Allen went down. But it's just, you pair a guy in Quentin Johnson with a 15.6 career yard ADOT. You pair that with Justin Herbert, who has one of the best arms in the league, and you just have massive spike week potential, which, yes, helps you in best ball, but also helps you in redraft leagues. Because if you're putting a guy like Quentin Johnson in your lineup, you want week-winning weeks, right? You want the upside to offset a dud in your lineup, and that's just kind of the profile he has. Now, the issue is that he is a third wide receiver on his depth chart. By the way, again, we talked about it earlier, but JSN's in the same exact boat. But I looked back. The last time Kellen Moore had 3 stud wide receivers all healthy for a season, it was CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup, and I believe it was 2021. And they had the 6th most 3+ wide receiver sets in the league. I'd imagine that if you use a first-round pick on a wide receiver 3 and Quentin Johnston, that they're going to run more 3 wide receiver sets. They're going to pass the ball a ton. We look at Kellen Moore and what he's done over the last 4 years in Dallas. 3 of those years, he had a top 6 offense in scoring. 3 of those years, he had a top 10 offense in pass attempts. There's going to be a lot of volume. There's going to be a lot of scoring in this offense. Quentin Johnson just has a spot here where he could just have such an insane amount of efficiency that you don't really need the volume as a wide receiver 3 in this offense. It does help as well. There's not really a tight end of consequence in Gerald Everett. He's not going to take a ton away. So I'm very much into Quentin Johnson. I'm taking a lot of him. I'm stacking a lot of him with Justin Herbert. Again, we talked rookie wide receivers are league winners. They're cheat codes. And he is the cheapest one in the elite tier of wide receivers from this draft class. So for that reason, I'm drafting a lot of Quentin Johnson. If you want to go out there and draft some Quentin Johnson yourself, again, that'll be on Underdog. Use promo code Ron when you hop on Underdog Fantasy. I'll have a link down below in the comments. But as always, I appreciate you guys sticking around here, watching this video. I figured I'd give you guys a quick little one on this Saturday, even though, this was like a 17-minute video on just one player. So that's kind of tough. But anyways, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold.